maybe controversially, but I think The Flash.
Yes, we're the only ones! You actually like it! We are the only ones that like
We've
that.
been
Like,
vindicated!
It's our favourite answer and no one agrees with us. And I think me and George have always kind of been really honest, like we're not just interested in trying to sell films. I don't want an audience member to just be like they like everything or they just slag everything off.
People might not believe this, but genuinely, when the cameras stop rolling, when
We
James
still
and I
talk about
together,
films.
we still talk about it in exactly the same way.
I'm getting quite sick of seeing the same 6 actors in all of the films.
You see how this looks, right?
There's something about Nolan films, I still think he struggles with female characters.
How did you guys both first fall in love with film?
I became obsessed with The Shining when I was 8, and I was like, I gotta watch this looks really cool.
Quite weird, right? Yeah. Just to keep glazing the Matrix forever, I think the best exposition scene ever is when Morpheus explains to Neo, what is the Matrix?
This episode is sponsored by The Matrix.
We have a small favour to ask all of you. Please, could you check right now if you've clicked the subscribe button? It's one simple, free thing that you could do to help us keep this show free and to keep improving it week after week. So please, double check if you've subscribed. Thank you so much. I actually watched Brand New Day yesterday. I finished work and went and watched Brand New Day, and it was really good. I think it's my favourite of the Hollands.
I thought that,
Lots of
I quite
people,
liked it. Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, any film that is like that puts Peter Parker through the fucking ringer.
Yeah.
It's like tick.
Yes, that to me is Spider-Man. Like, it's the struggle of being Spider-Man, being Peter Parker, or having to balance one and the other. I've always thought is like the great part of what I like about Spider-Man stuff. I like the first half of that movie a lot more than the second half, I think.
Same. We were saying this in the office, weren't we? That like it started out so much as Peter's. I really agreed with what you guys were saying about it on your review. That like it starts out as Peter's story.
Love all that.
And Holland is selling it. Like every blow, he gets dealt a lot of blows. Like not just physically. And then like that scene on the rooftop. But like that scene on the rooftop is it's cruel what happens.
Yeah.
But then it kind of had to become someone else's Sadie Sink story essentially, which I thought was it's like how I felt about Homecoming was it's like a really fun, good 90-minute teen movie trapped inside a 2-hour MCU film. And has to satisfy all those other little nodules.
This is what I was saying to George the other day. I said we were speaking with like friends, talking about Spider-Man, and like I think it's a really solid film, but maybe it's not like exactly what I want from a Spider-Man film as like an old school Spidey fan. And I just had this thought that when it comes to those really big superheroes, like your Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, I believe that they lose a lot more than they gain from being part of a wider cinematic universe. Because Batman is so well realized with like an amazing tapestry of villains, they have like all these great stories well realized, they often lose out by having to play with all the other characters versus historically like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, big now but are smaller characters that don't have as many villains and other characters. They do much better being in an Avengers Assemble film, whereas I actually think like Spider-Man's losing out because he has to now launch the X-Men, or he's got to have this like Tony Stark thing involved with him, or he's got to have Nick Fury, it's got to like sort of marry something. I think it sort of loses out a bit. But like Superman, amazing in Man of Steel, great in his own film. Not good in Batman v Superman. Like it's not a good Superman movie. No one wins in the Justice League, but like it doesn't work for that, right? I think Superman's better on his own.
Totally, and it takes you back to what I mean. I think it would be maybe dangerous to call it the glory days, but when you look back at the beginning of the superhero boom in the noughties, you look at like all Raimi had to do was make a really good Spider-Man movie, like Spider-Man 1 or 2 or 3. You know, you just had to make the best Spider-Man movie you could, and just Spider-Man.
Yes.
Didn't have to worry about anything.
No pressure of everything else. Yeah,
and there's a purity to that, which I think is which I miss from some of the MCU.
That's why I'm like, if James Gunn reboots Batman, they recast it, they redo it. I'm like, it's kind of already, I think, fighting with an arm behind its back. Versus Robert Pattinson's got his own thing with the Matt Reeves thing. I don't think they're going to do more than number 2 because I think it's just like it's complicated. But I'm like, that gets to just be Batman. It gets to just do Batman villains, just do Gotham. I just think that will make Batman better than like you got to meet Superman and like we're going to build towards a villain. I'm like, you're kind of just crippling those really great characters in a way.
It doesn't make sense for Batman to be fighting an alien and a super powerful alien, and vice versa. Like their whole character descriptions and like arcs and everything don't work together. Like they kind of cancel out and nullify each other, and it's just like bland.
Totally. Having said that though, I looked at your list of like your 10 like great underrated gems in the 2020s. Which is a really interesting list, and I did one of my own, and actually I was thinking about maybe controversially, but I think The Flash.
Yes, we're the only ones. You actually like it. We are the only ones that like that. Like definitely that film. It's our favourite answer, and no one agrees with us. We saw that movie with the lowest expectations, genuinely in the pits of like the dying dregs and the embers of the DCEU, and we were slapping our knees, elbowing each other the whole time.
Honestly, what a hoot! What a hoot it was!
Yeah,
and like it's not. Yes, it's so easy to sit and like in the cold light of day and be like, yeah, there's many things about it that aren't very good.
Yeah,
but like some of it is like so bad, like the CGI, that it becomes almost like a defiant avant-garde expression of itself. And you're like, oh, okay, it's almost deliberate. The CGI is so bad in this film.
The film was so dead on arrival as well. It's like you have this all of this unfortunate stuff with Ezra Miller like off screen. You've got like Ben Affleck for some reason coming back in to do a scene, even though like his stuff is gone. It's like a multiverse movie trying to clutch on to multiverse movies after everyone already decided that they hated multiverse movies. But I was like, this is funny and fun.
All these great jokes about like Back to the Future having Eric Stoltz in it, and like,
Nicolas Cage in that.
Oh my god, in the thing, and like it's just like all this. I think it's a good time.
Michael Shannon treating it like it is essentially Man of Steel 2. Like he literally is like, I love this character. I will not do half measures on this performance. So good.
Did you hear that interview? That soundbite? I think it was in like he breaks down his greatest roles, and he was saying talk about the Flash, and when his agent phoned him and said, "Hey, they want you back as Zod," and he's like, "They saw Man of Steel, right? They know what happened to Zod." And it was like, yeah, but it's different. It's a multiverse. It's like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Like, he's just not. He's not into it. But then he showed up, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like Garfield and Maguire as well in No Way Home. Like they show up.
When they see the paycheck, of course. And all the zeros help, on the decimal points.
And Tobey Maguire was like, I can make more from this than playing high stakes poker. Molly's game.
It's in the high stakes poker. But no, The Flash. I think that's an underrated film. I mean, I hadn't really seen too much actually of the DCU post Man of Steel. I'd seen bits and bobs. So I remember when that film came out, The Flash, and people were checked out on the DCU.
Rightfully so.
It's like, but I kind of wasn't because I'd missed a lot. So when like Gal Gadot shows up as Wonder Woman, I'm like, oh my god, it's Wonder Woman. And it's Batman.
I'm a bit like that too.
Yeah. And then Batman fighting like Michael Keaton. Obviously, we're talking about Batman fighting aliens.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's one of the few times where it kind of works.
He's fighting a giant, enormous, roided up Kryptonian, and it kind of works. Why not?
And
sure.
It shouldn't work, but like this guy should be like putty, and this guy's hat, but like fucking stands his ground
because he's Batman.
He's Michael Keaton.
Did you watch the Snyder cut? All 4 hours of that?
I haven't seen either Justice League or the Snyder Cut. This is I guess, damaging my nerd credentials here. But
you've not missed anything. Don't worry.
People have a lot of goodwill around the Snyder Cut, it seems, the fan base.
I've not seen I'm like you, I've not seen
it. It was like, sort of coming out of lockdown, I watched that. It's an interesting one where, like, I bet it's more of a sort of art installation than a film. It's like a 4 hour long, completely unregulated thing that exists, and it's like, what if someone could make something that was 4 hours long and remake it? And it's like, but that's not how it works. Like, you can't. I get that it's 4 hours long, but it's like, it's such a weird thing of a film. You get like 3 hours into it and you're like, this thing is still just cracking on. Like on and on. I don't think it's good. I'm more like, it's better than the Justice League, but it just gets to do so many more things that it would never have been allowed to do if it came out in the first place. Like, that was never going to be Zack Snyder's original Justice League, but I guess it's there.
Are you enjoying this episode? Are you itching for new Half the Pitch content to come out? Then join the rest of our members. You'll get access to our episodes 48 hours earlier than everyone else, with full pitch members getting this too, and extended cuts that no one else gets to see. So, if you want to support the show, get these Half the Pitch member benefits. Click join right now. I realised that we've been...
I know. I we just cracked on and I loved it, yeah.
Wasting your data.
I was like, this is being recorded, I think.
But look good.
Well, I guess, like, by way of introduction, I mean, I know who you guys are. I've been a fan of yours for a while, Pulp Kitchen. But I guess for our viewers and listeners who are not familiar with you guys, tell us a little bit about yourselves. Who are you?
We are Pulp and Kitchen.
No, like Richard and Judy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
We're a film and it's predominantly film, but also a bit of TV podcast. And what we spend our time doing is talking about the latest releases, reviewing them, also interviewing actors and directors, and also just kind of hearing from our audience what films they like, and kind of talking about older films as well. We have a we have a social media presence as well. We do a lot of specific short form clips, but we have the main long form podcast as well. What else is under the bonnet?
The spirit of the show has always kind of been wanting to capture, like when you go and see a film with people who also really love films, and you go to the pub afterwards and you just want to chat and dissect it and talk about it. That's kind of where like the love for the show came from. We met at uni doing like theatre and plays together. It was the hype cycle of The Force Awakens about to be released, and there's all this like dormant excitement from Star Wars fans who were all finding each other and being like, did you hear that thing in that moment? I wonder what's going to happen. And yeah, just like realizing how much we love to talk about films. I think it's the only thing I could talk about every single week forever and not get bored. I thought that's why I'm like, we're here doing film
5 years later.
So I think that's still like the spirit of it. Like people I think want to listen to us to really find out, is a film actually good? Why was it great? And then there's like a really great community feedback of like people writing in, exchanging ideas. And we've been going for 5 years now. It's the nicest way. It's just taken over everything. And
we've been very, as I sort of touched on, we've been very lucky and fortunate to meet some actors and directors who we absolutely adore and love their work, and we had time to speak to them about their work, because inherently we do love film, and we always want to have a good time when we see a movie and understand the process more. So like we're just giddy sometimes at the opportunities that we're able to get by doing this.
And like we both grew up listening to people like Mark Kermode on like traditional radio broadcast interviews. And I think so much of the structure of our show, in a way, we've just borrowed that traditional radio broadcast style review structure, but we just sort of made it more informal, more us. We're not on the radio. We'd love to be, by the way, if the radio would like to put us on. But yeah, I guess it's like borrowing that format and sort of making it our own. We do review films, but we've never really sort of considered ourselves like official reviewers. So I think the tone is already has always to me felt like who would actually enjoy this film? Why do I like it, and why does that work for me? Because it might not work for someone else. I think that's always been really important to sort of like our tone of voice.
And yeah, one thing like we've really enjoyed learning is that people, it doesn't matter whether you watch 5 films a year or 50 or 500. It's like if you enjoy films and you're passionate about films and you just enjoy the experience of watching movies, like that's enough. And one thing we always like to do on our show is we end with a game, like a movie related like trivia game. And it's been really fun seeing people kind of activate and getting engaged with that, and it shows you that people have this like just passionate love for cinema that's always lying there. And one thing that's happening at the moment, which is really exciting, is James mentioned we've been doing it for 5 years. We started this in the sort of the shadow of COVID, not many releases, went through the strikes, and now at the moment Hollywood is having its best year since 2019, and actually just had its best opening weekend of all time with Spider-Man and the Odyssey. And it's been great seeing that in our listeners and their engagement and their sort of passion, because we get people sending in their emails and their reviews about movies, and like that's really nice to be kind of witness to in what we do.
And I guess part of that positive expression of the community as well, because one of the things I really like about you guys and your pod is the love and the passion, the positivity that comes through. I think it's naked, it's there, and that's great. You know, when so much of the online discourse can be dominated by kind of rage bait or like, you know, negative discourse. It's great to have like a proponent, you guys being a proponent of like, no, this is great. Let's talk about this, but let's talk about it lucidly as well, honestly, but also from a place of passion.
Yeah, we had an email the other day. Someone asked us about like this idea of like contrarianism online, of being like, oh, is there something a risk of sort of being those people who always don't like something, which we really don't think is true. Like we really praise something when it's great, and if we don't think something's good, we're not. And I think there's like a lot of people in the film and TV space on Instagram and TikTok. There's nothing against what they do, but I think they're more of just like there to hype something up. Like, oh my God, this was amazing, and maybe they're just there to help sell something because they get invited to the premiere and they want to get access to the talent. And I think me and George have always kind of been really honest. Like we're not just interested in trying to sell films. If it works and somebody wants to invite us to something, like we'd love to help share, you know, what's exciting about a film. But at the end of the day, we really do want to have a conversation about like, did we like it? Why is it good? Why did it not work? Was it better than this? And I think that's been quite core to, I think, developing a relationship with our audience. Like, I don't want an audience member to just be like, they like everything or they just slag everything off. I hope that develops a consistency of relationship with like, oh, these guys actually will tell me if something's good or not.
And actually it's also like that idea of, you know, like James mentioned, some creators who just live to hype a film. I've always thought that's not how people inherently talk about movies offline and in person though, is it? Like if we were at the pub, you wouldn't just be like, oh my God, have you seen the latest Spider-Man movie? Like, oh, you'd be like, oh, it's terrible. You don't, you go through it and you kind of explore the nuances, and that's what we've always, people might not believe this, but genuinely, when the cameras stop rolling, when
we still talk about films.
We still talk about it in exactly the same way. And sometimes we're being like, we're never like we're always working in a way, but because it's something we love, we're kind of never working. But it's genuinely that's how we talk about film.
Someone asked me the other day, he's like, "Do you ever run out of stuff to say with films?" And I was like, "Do you know what? Genuinely, no."
Yeah.
And I think if it had happened, it would have happened a few years ago. But we're just still like quite happy to talk about films, and films keep coming out.
Yeah, it's every week there's new films. Yeah.
When do films stop coming out? Stop
They say all the time, I'm really happy we podcast in a very active category. Like you said, like cinema's coming back. Like it feels like it's been coming back, but it's like it has its problems, but it's alive and well in terms of like there's films almost every week. Outside of that, there are great TV shows that you can dip into. I'm so glad we don't do like a sewing podcast or like something where just like nothing against sewing, but it's not like maybe I don't know about like the sewing news.
What's been the opening weekend for the sewing day?
Yeah, like, I don't know. They're just like maybe I'm just really closely attached to films, but I'm like I don't always have to wonder like what are we going to talk about.
Yeah.
So like, oh well, Spider-Man comes out in a few weeks. Then after that we've got this, and then it's fine.
Yeah. But you mentioned there like how you do try and be, you know, like you say, like when you're sitting down and talking with your mates about a film, you get into the nuances of it, you get into the weeds, you know, which is part of the joy of that and sort of straddling that. But then, as you say, like you have also been through the podcast, you've been able to interview great, you know, talent like filmmakers and actors that you're a fan of. I mean, what was the most memorable one of those?
Oh, that's a really good question because. You know, we have people that are like, oh, the biggest name we've spoken to, which is cool. And then there's like the coolest interaction, but maybe the interview was just fairly standard. And then there's people you interview who mean a lot to you. But then there's also people you interview who you go in thinking, okay, this will be fun. And then they reveal themselves to be really amazing. Yeah. So I know I'm kind of like giving multiple answers, but like, for example, we were really happy to get 15 minutes with Sean Baker and Mikey Madison when Anora came out. And also
really early, like we saw the film really, really early and loved it. And then we had like 15, 16
which
minutes.
Which is rare for a junket to get that long. Yeah. And we had, but as a result, we were able to have actually like a proper conversation with him. And we were really quite proud of that as well, because that was quite, you know, a couple of years ago now, so we were a bit smaller. But then on the flip side, it's like, I interviewed Vince Gilligan, who made Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which is like, a lot of people wouldn't be able to recognize Vince Gilligan or maybe know who he is, but as such a fan of his work, I was quite giddy to sort of see him. And also he was like the nicest person I think I've ever met. So that was a really joyful experience. But it's not like those clips then blew up and it like changed the shape of the show, but that's just like a nice experience.
On the Anora one, it's like, it was a perfect storm because it was a small film that just ended up getting loads of buzz and got nominated and got an award show. But it's almost like at that time, we got that opportunity because it was so early. Yeah. And like usually with junkets, like it could be really tough. You get 4 or 5 minutes and it's a double interview and it's like, that's barely 2 questions. But it was like, we can relax, talk about a film that we actually really enjoyed. Like we got to ask him about like types of lens flare in the back and just like really ask about these repurposed Russian lenses that have created a really distinct look. And obviously as a filmmaker, like he fucking loves that conversation because he like chose that lens and used it. So it's like a perfect example. And we did, like clips from that did do really well.
When the film started to get traction. Really but also because we were given longer with him as well, we were able to take a punt on slightly like sillier questions, but actually they were quite fun. Like we asked him about his font. The posters of his movies always had the same font, and the same with like Tarantino has his font, Christopher Nolan's font. And like it's if we had less time, we wouldn't have asked that question. No. But we had time to sort of explore it, and he really enjoyed that. We had kind of a fun conversation around that. So yeah, I
got to do Danny Boyle with Alex Garland paired for just after 28 years later, and like they've both made some of my favorite films, and I absolutely adored 28 years later. It's like the surprise hit for me. And I think I had like 12 minutes with them, which again was really good. And it was like, had a great chat. Like, you know, like Alex Garland, he talks very sincerely, but like he really does answer your question. And Danny Boyle was like quite playful. But when I ended the conversation, I just had to say like, I love both of your films. This is genuinely a career highlight for me. Thank you so much. And they were like, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And you just go, oh, great. What a privilege for an unpaid thing I do. It's just like,
which also, it was always slightly nerve-wracking because you don't want to come across as like, oh, I love you. I love you. But like,
if I don't say, so I got to interview. This was at Sundance. I got to interview Elijah Wood for like, you know, literally 5 minutes, and he's obviously the sweetest. I'm a massive Rings fan. Like those films just mean the world to me, and I genuinely do believe like I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for those films and him being such a cool part of it. And I was like, he probably gets this all the time, but I was like, I might never meet Elijah Wood again. So like I finished the interview and I just said, Elijah, I just want to say, man, I love The Lord of the Rings so much. Like, and I said what I said, like those films are the reason I'm here. And obviously he was the sweetest in the world. He was like, oh my God, thank you. Like he'd heard it for the first time, but it was so cool just to get to shake someone people down and be like, I love what you did in that film that means so much to me, and just get to do that. Yeah.
Also worth saying about that interaction, which I saw, which was lovely. I saw like the love in both of your eyes.
Yeah.
James is 6'6".
He did look
Elijah
like my
Wood is
Hobbit.
5'4". So it was a bit like,
He really was Elijah. no depth trick needed in the camera. Like he did just. I
Peter
looked
Jackson
like
needs to shoot this.
I looked like his wizard. Yeah. I was like hitting my head in the lampshade of the house. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, wow. I mean, what you were saying there about Garland and Boyle, it reminded me, we recently had on the podcast Rob Hardy, the DOP, who shoots all of Garland's films.
yeah.
And he was telling this great story about when him and Garland were doing Annihilation, and they'd shot it and they were in the editing room. I think they were grading it. And Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie come in. And it was that, and this was around when McQuarrie and Cruise were getting Rob Hardy on to shoot Mission Impossible Fallout. Oh, wow. And there was and Rob Hardy, he was sitting right there, and he was telling us a story about how there was just a moment where in the same room were Alex Garland, Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, and him, and he's like, and Garland, they say Garland's quite serious,
yes.
Very thoughtful, and and then and Cruise obviously coming in as
Yeah.
Tom Cruise. Yeah. He's got that energy
his room now.
and focus, and it was just like it was all about like MCU crossovers like earlier, like it was just like two crossovers. And he just was like, how is this?
Yeah.
How is this? What's going
Pinch
on?
me moment.
Yeah, and Cruise is apparently saying like, show me the darkest thing you've done. Show me the darkest scene. It's
quite good. Yeah,
The darkest thing.
No, I want to see it.
And do you guys know Annihilation? I'm guessing.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Played
Yeah.
the scene with the bear scene.
Yeah.
And that sounds like that was instrumental in getting Rob the job on Fallout. Maybe, but that was quite early on. But yeah, that was just a cool story. And hearing these stories, people, because being a fan. I just find it so fascinating to hear about the workings and and how these things happen. How these films come together and the people.
Yeah, like the people who are
always
making it are the biggest fans of it, and they should be. And I think that's really nice when you hear that. Yeah.
And touching back on Anora, because I'm so jealous that you guys got to chat with Sean
great.
and
It was great.
that's unbelievable. Did you? Because I saw that film. I saw it because was it LFF that you guys?
It was before that actually. I mean, it did play at LFF, but honestly, we saw it 2 months before and interviewed 2 months before the release date of the movie. Yeah.
Because I saw Anora. I think it was the second screening at LFF. It was packed, and it was just I don't know how you guys felt when you watched it, but like seeing it with a crowd that big and everyone, like the bit where she says, she's about to get on the plane, or she doesn't want to get on the plane, and she says, I didn't sign a prenup, I'm getting half everything. The whole audience clapped. I love that communal experience.
Great
of watching
movie.
a movie
Really great movie.
where everyone just is so into it, and like do you have any memorable experiences of that, where like everyone, the energy in the room is just through the roof?
Do you know what? Yes, actually, and what's quite nice is obviously we're very lucky we get invited to screenings ahead of time, which is great, and then there's always part of you that's thinking, okay, if I'm seeing this with fellow journalists or content creators, am I missing what like the true punter experience is like? However, sometimes it doesn't matter because a packed audience is a packed audience, and I saw Weapons at a preview, packed. A great energy, and it was one of those things where the crowd was at first quite active, and you thought, is this going to be a disruptive audience who's going to talk all the way through it? But it's like, for that movie, you need a packed audience to hit all the shocks and all the jokes in it. And it was quite an exhilarating ride. And we spoke to someone yesterday who'd watched Weapons for the first time on a plane, and it's like the audience is half the movie with an experience like that, and that's so wonderful.
Yeah, there are like sort of big screen, big theatre films. I think you won't get the same experience if you see it in a smaller screen, which is a shame. So I actually really enjoy like a smaller, more intimate screen. But like, it could be a film that like I think we definitely wouldn't have liked a little. Like we saw Bad Boys Ride or Die.
Oh yeah.
At a massive multi-view screening, which like again we were like that was fine because the crowd was so up for it, and it wasn't like usually it wasn't a stuffy film journo critics crowd. It was like a bunch of regular people. I think it was just like content creators, people who work in media. But like the film was actually just like quite fun. And I was like, if I'd seen that in a like a small, tiny artistic screen, I would have gone, this is crap.
Yeah.
So
did to the Flash as well, actually. That also,
and the Flash.
audience in the Flash were up for it in the same way. So you can get that's the special sauce.
And there's like obviously like those moments like when I saw the Force Awakens at 1:00 on release night, like that was the way to see it, and like the chills and the fever of the Star Wars splash screen coming on and the text, it was like my heart was beating and everyone was like buzzing and I was like hopped up on caffeine and slushies. It was like, I can't believe this is happening. It would have been such a shame to have missed that or have watched it alone or have like caught it later. Like it was a moment in time.
It's similarly, like I actually, it's sometimes nice to go to a film that you kind of get pulled into that maybe you were just sort of half interested in. So my example is in 2013, I was at uni, like my flatmates were like, we really want to see the Hunger Games Catching Fire, right? And I was like, well, I'll go along because it's a group outing. I'd seen the first one, I quite liked it, whatever. But I'm like on the periphery of the audience, you know. And then we turn up, and it at that time was the busiest audience screening I've ever been to. Huge screening room, completely full, you know, like a Wednesday night full of students and everything. And like you cram in seats. I think we had to sit partly separately because it was so busy. But because that crowd loved that movie so much, it completely like brought me in as someone who was just kind of on the fence. But so I look back and I'm like, I actually love Catching Fire because that film works, and it worked for that audience.
Yeah, Catching Fire is a great film. I only recently did the Hunger Games films. I'd seen the first one when it came out, but I completely fell off after that. And then me and my girlfriend and a couple of mates, we marathoned them. And like I don't think people talk about how actually good those movies are and how well they've aged. I think they've aged much better than people might remember.
Did you like the Mockingjay ones?
I did. I
really,
think those to me are actually in some ways the most interesting.
Oh, interesting.
I've only seen those first four. I haven't seen Songbirds and Snakes, but the fact that they, you know, they, in like I love big blockbusters that try and tackle quite meaty, murky themes. And those last two films are they're essentially war movies, like political war movies about, you know, power and corruption and like, you know, the politics of war and the vox populi and all these things, but done in this massive popcorn blockbuster fashion. And that's like food and drink to me. I love that. How did you guys both first fall in love with film? When did this love affair start?
It's a good question. I've always loved films, so I've always really been into them, always watched them more than most of my friends. My parents always knew I was really into films when I was young. Early exposure to Spielberg films, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all of that I think really like set it in. And then my parents enjoyed films. Like we would go to the cinema quite a lot, and then I think it just like it takes off from there, and you develop your own interest in it. Really wanted to work in like media and production. Did work in television for a while, which was like, although it wasn't cinema, it was making videos and filming stuff and creating. So it's always felt really relevant to like most of what I've done. I'd say.
I think for me, I've thought about this as well. I was thinking, where's the origin point? Where's the inception of the love? And I think when I was a child, there was a period of time when channels like Channel 4 and Channel 5 used to do these programs, which was like basically a listicle, where it was like 100 greatest movies of all time, 50 movies you need to see before you die, 50 best heroes and villains. And what that does, write those down. It was a great way of essentially mainlining the history of cinema in a short period of time, because you're basically getting a clip show of all the best moments and all the most famous moments in cinema. You're getting the Jaws scene with the shark coming out of the water, you're seeing bits from Vertigo. And I remember sort of watching this, and it was a world of film that I'd never encountered before, because these were adult films. I'd never, you know, seen them. But hearing sort of my parents react and talk to them really piqued my interest. I remember thinking, this all looks amazing and you clearly like it. I need to get into this world. And I think I became a bit of that annoying kid who like wanted to slip in loads of references to all these older films that I'd seen. So, you know, like...
You're still that guy.
And like, I think when people, you know, at school I'll probably be like, yes, but have you seen this old movie called Beetlejuice, actually? And I think it just kind of took from there. And then I think especially when you get to your sort of teenage years, and also how tech and media was changing, and that accessibility to movies was massively opening up. Like, whether it's like getting something like Sky Plus, or then like Netflix and all the streamers coming through. Suddenly, I remember being sort of 19 and realizing that I can watch as many movies as I wanted all the time.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I also really think a really core part of like falling in love with film from an early age is watching something that's not quite age appropriate for you a little bit too young. Totally. There's a really fine bat where like the ratings are there for a reason, blah, blah, blah. But everyone tells you about a 15 or an 18 film they watched when they were like way underage. But the reaction to watching something a little bit naughty or a little bit forbidden, I think was like, oh my God. Like it sort of exposes you to something you've never really seen before. Like I watched The Matrix 1 really young, and I was at a sleepover with a bunch of older boys. And we had to call my mum to ask if it was okay if James could watch The Matrix, and we were all like there with our fingers crossed, like waiting to watch it. And it was like quite threatening, and there's a lot of violence. It's like a really hard concept to unpack, but like because it was one of the first times you've seen such like incredible violence and this like body horror and grotesque imagery, it just blew my mind. And I was like, fucking hell, what is this? This is the best action film ever. And I think that like early, like you get hooked, and then you want to see the next one and the next one.
And now we don't have to ask James's mum permission anymore.
Yeah, we don't.
Now he's free to watch whatever he wants.
Rarely, yeah.
Do you have a film like that, George? Where like the equivalent of The Matrix? There was
Yeah.
like an early exposure to something that was older.
Yes. True to that, those shows I was talking about, the one like Channel 4 and Channel 5, I became obsessed with The Shining, but I was 8. And I was like, I've got to watch this. This looks really cool.
Quite weird, right?
Yeah, and there was the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror that like spoofed it. And I remember my dad being like, I really don't think you want to watch that. But I nagged and I nagged and I nagged, and I saw it coming up in the TV guide, the paper TV guide. And he was like, okay. And so I watched, I'd say probably 40 to 50% of The Shining, which was a terrible idea when I was 8 years old. It really messed me up. But it did make me feel kind of like naughty and like invincible. And then after that, seeing things like Jaws and Alien and The Godfather, again, when I was like 8 or 9, it didn't like faze me a little bit because I'd been burnt by The Shining. But yeah, seeing those films at that age, yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
My version of that is Batman Returns.
Oh, right.
The second Tim Burton one, which was for a long time the only one in the UK that was a 15 until The Batman.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing that, I think I was 4. And this is a Batman movie.
Freaky, yeah.
Yeah, it's a freaky, kinky ass movie, and because it's Batman, people, I think parents are like, oh yeah, well, it's Batman. We'll go take our kids to see that. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the story behind like McDonald's basically, I think, pulling out of the merchandising of that film, like because they watched the film like the Penguin Danny DeVito has black stuff coming out of his mouth. Like, he can't sell. We don't want to sell this to Happy Meals.
Yeah.
But I remember watching that film as like a 4-year-old, and it's so weird and so kind of almost kind of ultra in like the way that, like you've got Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman and that skin. So I'm 4 years old, I had no idea how to comprehend that. And like Danny DeVito and that soaring kind of gothic architecture of Gotham that Burton would build on those sets. And that really that was my exposure to something that felt completely. I was not ready for that, but that's part of the charm.
You've just reminded me. I saw Ghostbusters when I was probably like 6, and there's scenes in that if you're not old enough, really are quite haunting. And
Quite
so
in your face, yeah.
the scene where Rick Moranis gets chased by the demon dog and then gets eaten outside the glass restaurant, which as an adult you recognise as a funny gag. When you're 6 years old, I was like, that man is being eaten from within by a demon dog, and I thought this man was funny because it's Rick Moranis, and I remember my parents had to sort of like put on Toy Story immediately afterwards as like a remedy to take it out of me. But yeah, Ghostbusters, man.
Toy Story is a remedy.
Yeah, quickly, it'll cancel out.
I remember doing that. I think with Temple of Doom was another one.
Oh,
You guys
sure.
Kalimar.
Really? Yeah.
Kalimar sequence.
You've never seen anything like that? That's a ripping a heart out. It's horrifying. I had so many nightmares. Like I would be walking into that big cave where they're like, Om Nom Shivaya, Om Nom Shivaya. I used to really, it was nightmare fuel. But amazing. I think it's really fun. Like it's a little bit Disney, the Temple of Doom stuff, despite it being really dark. It kind of works.
It's so heightened.
Yeah.
So colourful, even though it's very dark and like dusty and bloody. It's got a real. I watched it again recently. I introduced my girlfriend because she hadn't seen any of the indie films.
Oh, wow.
And there's at least one moment in each of those 3 films where like something incredibly
gnarly
horrific
happens.
happens. Like when Toad gets his face melted off.
Yes.
She was like, "That's not nice."
That's in my brain now.
And when Indy drops, when Harrison Ford drops down into the Well of Souls for the first time, when they're going to get the Ark, and John Rhys Davies like, "I told you it will be all right," all that stuff. And he lands in front of like the Cobra.
Yeah.
She was literally like, she grabbed my hand like that, which was such an amazing experience. It's a classic film for someone who's never seen it. I mean, it's such a great. Star Wars is what we're going to do next. She's never seen Star Wars. So have you guys ever had that where you introduce like something like that, and you can see them seeing it, kind of like Commodity, secondhand. You see it. They see it for the first time.
Yeah, with my wife, we've watched a lot of films that I really appreciated, that I love, but actually just getting a perspective when she sort of says, actually, it's not that didn't really work for me, has actually been quite healthy, I think, because it's made me take a step back and be like, okay, I do love There Will Be Blood, but there is literally no female characters in this who have any importance or any lines or something like that. But so that sounds. I know your question was sort of framing it like, is it a positive experience? But actually, sometimes it's healthy if the people you're watching it with don't love it as much, because it reframes your perspective a little bit. But I don't know if you've had that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've forced my partner to watch Lord of the Rings, and watching her fall in love with it and realize how amazing they are, because they sort of work for everyone, really. I think I've sat my family down to watch. I sat my family down at Christmas to watch The Prestige, and they knew nothing about it, and I was like, guys, stay with me. It's a magic film, but I promise it's awesome. And you all have to put your phones away. You all have to concentrate even harder than you normally do. But I promise it's worth it. And it was nice to secondhand watch them discover The Prestige, and I was sort of watching them watch it a little bit, which is a really bad way to watch films. It can be really distracting to be like, are you fucking paying attention? But that was really fun.
I'm sorry, I want to quickly give a better answer. I've just remembered it because my wife's going to hate me for saying that. I showed her The Matrix the first time. She'd never seen it, didn't know anything about it, didn't know what a Matrix was. And we paused it halfway through to like make a cup of tea or something, which is when Neo's waking up. And so you've got the kind of mid-split. And she was honestly like leaning forward and we paused it and she went, 1999! Wow, that is amazing. And I was like, hook, line and sinker, the Wachowski's got you. Yeah, that was good, yeah.
That's amazing. You mentioned The Prestige. It's funny because we were actually, you're opening up a can of worms inadvertently there.
Oh, here we go.
We were talking about The Prestige in the office off the back of the Odyssey. Let's just say there are some people in this room who love The Prestige, and some people, there's maybe one person who's not such a fan of The Prestige.
Okay, it's not a perfect
film.
film. Yeah.
And that's all we will say about that.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't seen it in 10 years. I need to go back and watch it again.
It's not perfect, and all of Nolan's films are flawed in many weird and wonderful ways. But I think we were talking about this as well. The Prestige had a bit of a life cycle where like it came out between some Batman movies, got sort of like rediscovered as Nolan was popping, and everyone's talking about Dark Knight and Interstellar. It's like, no. Have you seen The Prestige? This is a really good, it's got all the great non-linear Nolan twisty traits to it, but everyone was like rediscovering it and re-loving it. It's a film that gets better on your second and third watch. And I feel like now everyone was like talking about how great The Prestige is, and I almost feel like now people are sort of, it's already been spoken for.
Yeah.
And people are now going back and criticizing it again for maybe like having some hammy dialogue or some bad lines or some like awkward scenes, but I really love it. It's like one of my favorite films for a long time.
Same. And it's, I'd have to say it's great movie, terrible poster, because it's got this sort of whispery Bond girl-esque like smoke with Scarlett Johansson in the middle. It doesn't tell you anything. And I remember when being handed that DVD in 2007 being like,
what's that?
What the hell's a Prestige? This thing's rubbish. It wasn't rubbish, it was amazing.
What was it you said you were going for? I didn't know what a Matrix was.
What's
a Prestige?
Yeah, I know what a Prestige is, tell me.
What's prestigious?
What we were talking before we started rolling about, because one of the great things about your guys, the podcast Pulp Kitchen, is that you do like you make lists of films that you love. You talk about different aspects of film, like like what's like you'll have that great game like name a film with like a shark. Jaws is like an obvious one, like Shallows or something. We've come up with a few sort of little topics that we're fun to chat about. If you guys had a particular one you want to go in for, if I should just start the ball rolling.
Fire away.
I mean, we were talking about. So I guess like perfect cinema moments in film, like films for you, that moments for you in films where just everything comes together. It could either be a scene or a moment in a scene. There is a beat of an action sequence or what have you, any kind of sequence, which for you just everything comes together perfectly, and like that is like the Tarkovsky like perfect cinema.
Yeah.
Do you have a
Absolute.
moment? Absolute cinema.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I Shia LaBeouf clapping me.
Exactly.
I do have one that comes to mind, which is a bit of a spoiler, but so it's for the Truman Show. And there are actually several moments in the film that I really like to isolate and really love. But for me, it's at the end of the Truman Show. You seen it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't want to ruin it for you. But
your audience can.
Obviously the whole journey, and it's like Truman trying to find his actual reality. And they've hit him with the storm and everything, and he's just on the sailboat drifting through the water. And it's drifting, and the sailboat hits the wall of the dome that he's in. He's literally come to the edge of his reality, and he cannot understand it. And the way it's played by Jim Carrey and Peter Weir, the director as well, took away the actual audio. You just have this song playing called Father Colby's Preaching, which is very moving. And basically, Truman cannot understand this, and he is just smacking the wall. And it is such a primal, like existential reaction of someone completely confronting the limits of their reality and not understanding. It's like watching a child, actually. And I found it like so profound and moving. I'm just sort of getting goosebumps now talking about it. Like I just love that as a perfect expression of a moment of, and also the articulation of the theme of that movie. I'm like, love it.
Also the still frame afterwards of the steps leading towards a door that leads beyond, and they do a really good job of never really I think it's a great decision to never show what happens next, because it could be this metaphor for like anything that's greater beyond. It could be a metaphor for death, and to discover what lies beyond is almost like a metaphor for death in itself. And I think if you were to pass through, it's almost like if the film is from Truman's perspective, we never really need to see what Truman was going to do. And I just think it's like that image as well. It's just perfect. Brilliant movie.
What do you?
My one, which I are often referred to a lot, and I think it's a really great example of a well-directed scene. There's great actors, there's great performances, there's great score, but when I think about the craft of this scene, I think it's perfect, and it's the first reveal of the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. It's the Spielberg face thing where everyone's reacting and singing, you see it in everyone's eyes. John Williams is cooking in a way that it's just never, I think it's an absolute perfect score moment. For some reason, the dinosaurs look better than most Jurassic World films do today, and the CG holds up. It's a sense of scale, magnificence, and this greater idea of like, but what are we going to do about this problem? It's the perfect end to an act one of a movie of like seeing what's happened, welcome to Jurassic Park, and then it like perfectly stops and moves into act two. And I just think if you watch it 1,000 times and you look at everything the camera does, the perfect timing of it, I go, that is a perfect scene, and it's just unforgettable.
And what's interesting about both of those two, now I think of it, is that they both rely predominantly just on music and visuals. Like, dialogue kind of
Dialogue light, you
know, obviously you have like, because you have that, like in Jurassic Park, you have the moment where they all turn and you see it, but then it like, not, you know, pure cinema takes over, where it's just like you just have that image of the dinosaurs or of Truman, you know, at the edge of his world, and then the music, and then that's all you need, and that just gives you everything you need. And like, so that's because when I was thinking of what my own version would be, I was thinking of some of the things where moments where just you don't need anything more than that. You know, there's a simplicity to it, but there's also a kind of beauty to it, not to sound too highfalutin about it.
No, but that's what cinema literally was originally. Before the, you know, audio and the talkies came in, it was just sound and, you know, image and sound behind it. So it's like, yeah, that's pure cinema.
And just to keep glazing the Matrix forever, I think the best exposition scene ever is when Morpheus explains to Neo what is the Matrix, and it's just this amazing secret that's been withheld to you for about 30 minutes into the film, where like you're wondering what is actually going on here. And in a scene that is a million words a minute, it should be really clunky. I think it's so wonderfully crafted. And Neo basically has like a panic attack where he's like, what is a Matrix? Control. That's the thing to turn a human being into this. And he's like, no, I don't believe it. I want out, let me out. It's just like, it's shocking, and it's visually, you've never really seen anything like it before. It's like, there are fields, endless fields. Human beings are no longer born. They're grown. That music sound, it's just so good. You're like, oh my God, this is horrible. It's great.
Meanwhile, my wife's brain is exploding.
Yeah, it's like a brain blow moment, and like Keanu Reeves just kind of kills. He's like, no, I don't believe it.
It's beautiful.
It's great.
It's beautiful, man. I mean, my answer to that is, well, it's funny because like, I have two that I kind of dance on, but like the one that I think I always come back to is in Carrie. Do you guys like know Carrie?
Oh yeah,
De Palma, the horror film. The moment when the bucket of blood comes down. And like you guys were saying before, like you have with those sequences, those two specifically, and with the Matrix, like there's a lot of build-up, very smart build-up to those beats where just everything comes together. And in Carrie, it's like a 10-minute sequence of like you see of being at the prom with her, and you see the prank that's going to be played on her. You see the bucket of blood, like they show it. The prom, like the camera comes up, and you see all the elements. He's literally like laying it all out for you. This is what's going to happen, and part of you really doesn't want to see it, but also really wants to see it because you're being G'd up for it. And then when the bucket of blood comes down, it's obviously devastating, but then there's no music. It goes boom, and you just hear the clunk of the bucket, and it's like a minute or 2 minutes. That for me, just like. Every time I see that, it just blows me away.
Heartbreaking scene.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Horrible.
In terms of like, because Carrie is like about to be happy for the first time in the movie, and then they're just bullies, man. They're wrong.
I don't know what it says about me. That's my favorite. Should we go to the next one?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So the next one we've got here is what's the greatest needle drops in films?
It's a huge.
I mean, that's
question.
a big field.
Yeah.
And there's so many great needle drops in films, like great tracks that have been used. But do you guys have any particular favorites or thoughts on?
Yeah.
Rage Against the Machine credit scene of The Matrix. Just while we're glazing.
This episode is sponsored by The Matrix.
Yeah.
No, do you have that?
Okay, so I would say also just what I've done. Linkin Park Transformers. Greatest needle drop ever. I'm gonna give a shot. I mean, I don't know about the greatest of all time in cinema. There's ones that I really love that remind me of like the perfect era in film. So I love the 2004-5 Wimbledon film with Paul Bettany and Kirsten Dunst. Love that movie. It is so naughty. Amazing idea to have two tennis players who are in the same tournament falling in love while it's happening. It's a ridiculous movie. But there's just really great naughty bangers that are dropped in that movie, like Sugar Babes get 2 needle drops in that film, and it's like Caught in the Moment plays at the perfect time. And rewatching it, you're like, this is just perfect British rom-com naughty sports film, and I love it for that. It's not the greatest of all time, but I'm like, it just perfectly captures the vibe. Rom-coms do really well with the right needle drop at the right time.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about it. I mean, every Richard Curtis movie, you can
Yes,
just reel off
yeah.
like, all the needle drops in those. And, I mean, Bridget Jones as well. So
Bridget Jones, Notting Hill, really, really great ones.
Yeah, those Sugar Babes would be up there.
Oh, absolutely, for me, yeah. I do like captures the noughties perfectly, yeah.
Mine is, again, a very hard question, but I always like to go back to Silence of the Lambs. The song is Goodbye Horses by an artist called Q Lazarus. It's okay, I don't expect there to be lots of Q Lazarus fans, but this is why I love it. So basically, this artist, Q Lazarus, only ever released this song. And it's the scene where Clarice knows I think she's onto something. She knows where to find Buffalo Bill. And meanwhile, you've got the scene of Buffalo Bill in his dungeon, putting lipstick on. And meanwhile, he's got this person captive in the well who's also actually trying to escape by getting the dog, because there's lots of sort of layers to it. But because it's a great song, though. It's like a late 80s electro pop, quite haunting sounding song. But it fits the scene perfectly. But on top of that, because it's by an artist who really only released this track, you almost feel like it exists purely within this movie, and it doesn't exist in the real world. And because it's not like by an artist that we all know from other things. It's like just locked in amber in this film, and it suits the scene perfectly. And it's a really good song. And every time I think about it, I'm like, that is the perfect needle drop. And Jonathan Demme directed Silence of the Lambs, and he had a great musical ear. He directed Stop Making Sense. So like he knew what to do. But every time I watch that movie, and that song comes on and that scene plays, I'm thinking, what a great ear for a great track that was plucked from obscurity and now is basically only known for that scene. I just love it. Yeah.
Almost like it was crafted bespoke for that.
Yes,
movie.
yes. You would have, if Jonathan Demme had come out and said this was written for the film, you would have believed it. But I love the fact that it was already an existing single.
I think that's one of the reasons why my favorite. I mean, we've got back here, Kate Bush. Like, like big Kate Bush fans here. But like, probably my favorite Kate Bush song is "This Woman's Work."
Oh, beautiful!
Song, which was written for a movie. It was written for "She's Having a Baby," the John Hughes film. Oh. I don't know if you guys. Do you guys?
No, that's a lesser Hughes film, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a bit more of a deep cut.
Kate Bush wrote that for that movie.
For a sequence, literally for a sequence in that film. There's a sequence with because it's all about like married life. It's Kevin Bacon and I think Elizabeth McGovern,
right?
From Once Upon a Time in America, and they play a couple. They're basically playing John Hughes and his wife,
right?
And there's a scene at the end. The whole movie is her being pregnant and getting closer and closer to the delivery day. And then something I don't want to spoil it, but basically like in that scene where she has the baby, that song plays. And it's silent. It's actually kind of like, it's just silent. It's just that song. It's absolutely like heart-wrenching because it's obviously the song is so moving. But like John Hughes phoned her up and was like, I want you to do a song for this film. And she watched the film and came back with that.
But that's also a perfect example of like a great track in an otherwise obscure and not very good film, right? I know I've seen it, but it's no one's really talking about that movie. But that track, that track is amazing. Oh, wow.
I'd also like to give a shout out to Shaun of the Dead, Don't Stop Me Now by Queen, because that trend of like, we're going to contrast the violence for the fun song, I think has been done to death a million times. Like Supergirl just did it, like you've seen it in Garland, it's all over. I think it's a really played out thing now, but it really makes sense for Shaun of the Dead. That is a comedy, satire, action, zombie movie where it's fun to contrast like obscene violence with a playful song, and that's the most memorable one. And it's probably not the first, but I'm like, that is what most people would point to, which I think has sparked this trend of everyone doing the same thing now. And I'm slightly less impressed when films are like, look at this funny song where everyone's being killed. It's like, but you're not Shaun of the Dead.
Well, what is Shaun? I mean, Shaun of the Dead's just like basically a person. I mean, that's a whole other subsection that Edgar Wright needle drops, because I think he's the master of what you just described.
Yes.
The playful needle drop, which just fits beautifully into the tone. Of the story.
So I think he did Baby Driver. It's like, I want a needle drop movie.
Yeah, build the script around that.
Somebody's listening to music the entire time.
Totally. Well, we had Stephen Price on, Edgar Wright's composer, a while back, and he was talking about with the script they had they designed, I think, an app for when they were giving the script out to studios execs, they could read it, and the app would read a QR code in the script. There'll be QR codes where all the songs would play, and they would scan it, and then it would play the song. So you could literally read the script while the song for that scene was playing.
Do you know, there's also a precedent for that in that the woman who wrote Dirty Dancing, forgive me, I can't remember her name, she wasn't getting any luck from studios when sending the script out. So what she did was tape a cassette of all the tracks because it's set in the 60s, right? So she was like, these are all the great 60s tracks you're gonna have in your movie. Listen, and she would write, listen to this while you read the script. And then suddenly people were like, I can see the movie now. Build it around the music,
Totally. I mean, my favorite. I think my favorite needle drop of the last few years is. Are you guys big Paul Thomas Anderson fans? Do you like that?
Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned There Will Be Blood, so of course.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite needle drop of the last few years is Let Me Roll It in Licorice Pizza.
Oh, so good, so good.
I'm
Yeah.
a fan of anything.
They're like on the bed, falling back.
Oh man, yeah. That riff. I saw Mac Alive actually a couple of years ago, and he played Let Me Roll It. I think that song had a bit of a boost off of
Yes,
it.
yeah.
But it's just like PTA is another one. He just gets music.
Do you know what? My other answer, if it wasn't for the Silence of the Lambs one, was in Boogie Nights. There's a song by, again, I love it when it introduces me to a band I've never heard of. It may have only had like one big song. There's a song called Driver's Seat by a band called Sniff and Tears, and it's the scene in Boogie Nights where it's at the pool party, and I think like Mark Wahlberg's at the bar, and he kind of looks around. It's just a very cool sounding song, and there's like a huge punch in the like crash zoom that PTA does, and again you're just like this. It's almost like divine purpose. This song was made for this movie, even though it's existed for like 30 years.
That's so weird. Because I'm a big fan of that soundtrack, and I'm trying to picture the scene you mean. Is
Oh,
it when he's chatting to John C. Reilly? Or?
It's been a couple of years now since I've seen Boogie Nights, but like I know Philip Seymour Hoffman's also in the scene, and we'll link up afterwards. I'll share. Yeah. We'll create a playlist.
That's a miss for me. Cool. I mean, hey, both great answers. So next one we've got here is famous what ifs in films. So like, what if a certain director made a certain film? What if a certain actor played a certain role? That kind of thing. I mean, the history of Hollywood and movies is like, in some ways, is what ifs. But like, what kind of what ifs do you guys think about?
Well, I really like the recent one that came out where it was Christopher Nolan was originally set to do Troy, and then he was. I got the details of like who is.
It's Wolfgang Peterson.
Peterson, like he developed Troy for a really long time, lost out, and they were like, we're actually going to give this to Wolfgang Peterson. Christopher Nolan had only done Memento and Insomnia, which was very much like you'd had this indie darling hit with Memento, and like you were ready to graduate into this big studio thing, but still very much unproven at that time. Loses out, develops Troy, probably funnily has like the Iliad and the Odyssey, like knocking around his brain for years. As like, and I think it was David S. Goyer who said it was like a contingency prize for him to be given Batman, and because it was like we fucked up by basically taking Troy away from you, which is this big movie, Swords and Sandals, Brad Pitt, and they were like, I think because of that he got more creative license to basically reinvent Batman, and obviously changed Hollywood and comic book movies like from that trilogy. And I love the idea that he'd been sitting probably on like, well, I did all this work for Troy, I've had this in my mind, come to him however many years later, established biggest director in the world that Nolan is, with basically carte blanche to go on and make the Odyssey. I quite like that's sort of all come full circle for him, that it didn't work out. You ended up having a great run in Batman. I'll do the Odyssey when I'm ready, and I think that's quite a nice one.
Yeah, I remember him saying that a lot of the images of Troy, where how he would tackle that material, were kind of burned into his brain.
Yeah.
But I remember him saying as well that like when that story came out, didn't he say like I didn't feel like I had either the license or maybe not the ability, but like it was too early to tackle the story that big.
For sure,
how he wanted to. Kind of like when Denis Villeneuve, I think, was building up to Dune in some ways. Like he'd made a couple of movies at the start of his career, then he kind of went away for 10 years, kind of like worked on his directing chops, then came back with Polytechnic.
It's about like the approach to building the Trojan horse in Troy was like it was made from scrap pieces of broken boats that had been like on the beaches of Troy that they used to cobble it together, versus it being this like pristine architectural wooden thing. And you see that again in the Odyssey, where like it's you clearly been like bolted together from old ships, which I think is like nice little details there to run through. But yeah,
I confess I've actually never seen Troy. I've never seen it, which is weird because it was a film that was around when I was growing up.
Yeah, it's very watchable. I think like you wouldn't be bored watching it. I think compared to the Odyssey, which is like obviously a completely different treatment, it's a bit surface and Hollywoody. So like it's fun. You'll have a bad time. It's all right.
Like it'll be quite sort of campy, slightly campy, kind of like historical, like romping.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of vibe?
I always feel like it's between eras where like things had to be, a bit pouty, a bit posy. It's always between eras where like things had to be a lot more grounded and more serious, but it wanted to sort of recapture like the epic Swords and Sandals films from like decades earlier. And it's sort of in this midpoint. It's probably a bit. I actually will say the sets and the costumes and the scale of it is really impressive. And it was like the most expensive movie at the time that was made. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's maybe just like a bit cheesy, a bit blockbustery.
And of course, it gave us Brad Pitt saying, "You sack of wine." I mean, I don't know the film, but I know that.
He is fuming for that whole film because I think like he was obliged to do it. Didn't he? Like I think it's Harvey Weinstein a film or something.
Yeah, so he was under some sort of an annoying
contractual obligation. He really didn't want to do it, and I think he had just come off of working with Fincher for Fight Club, I think, and was very much like, oh, look how great Fincher is with like character characters with depth. And I think he got into Troy, had to go on a grueling workout physique, which paid off. And I think he just found he found his character of Achilles to be very surface. And I think, by the way, the casting of Achilles in a great epic to do Iliad Troy had been knocking around lots of actors for a while. And I think when it landed on Brad Pitt's desk, I don't think he loved the script. I don't think he wanted Achilles to be what it was. But I think I'm putting words in Brad Pitt's mouth. That's roughly what I heard. I'll ask Brad. We're close. Yeah.
You said something interesting about how Nolan, we talk about The Prestige, and how Nolan's films, they're flawed in their weird and wonderful ways, almost like that's part of the charm. It sounded like. I mean, what do you mean when you say the kind of weird and wonderful ways that which they're flawed?
I think he's one of the best filmmakers working today, and I think all of his films are remarkable and so impressive. But I think my favorite one being Interstellar, although I love it and has some of the greatest highs of any Nolan's films, it's not perfect and it has problems. And I think most of Nolan's films, to varying degrees and in lots of different ways, they're not perfect. I don't think any of his films are perfect. And we actually did an episode on perfect movies, and we talked about, films like Toy Story 2 and things like The Matrix we talked about. And even though Nolan films are amazing and magnificent, it's like there's always something that I think takes away from it, but it doesn't mean that you can't love what it does well. Yeah. So Interstellar is so flawed for so many people, but I would describe myself as an Interstellar apologist. I'm like, how could you not just be completely bowled over by the emotions of that moment, even if he's pushing a bookshelf in a tesseract that's allowing him to see time as a physical dimension, through a black hole. Like, it's a big leap, but I'm like, it works.
I think that sometimes something about Nolan films, there's something a little bit unwieldy about them. They're so sort of grand and
ambitious. They take on a lot.
Yeah, and I think that, there's things like, I still think he struggles with female characters. For sure. And there's just no getting around that. You've had some great female actors coming in doing great performances in his movies, but that always seems to be a weakness. And there's sometimes I think like a weightiness and an unwieldiness that I think you have to sort of digest Nolan in a different way. And I think, for example, for me, my first time watching a Nolan film is never the best time of watching a Nolan film. I always find it's the second and third time, and it's like, because you want to properly digest it. So even with the Odyssey, I was like, it kind of took the pressure off. I went in thinking, I know this is not going to actually knock my socks off, because that comes later for me with his films. But probably that's what I would say.
Like, I think a film like Tenet is quite an interesting Tenet, which I think is widely regarded as probably a lot of people's least favorite Nolan film of late. And I think it's an interesting correction of he was getting sort of more complex and knotty with some of his sci-fi concept. Like Inception was really dense, but people could just about keep on top of it. And it's like Tenet, I 100% believe when you look at it on paper, I believe it 100% works and it checks out. And if you were to play it back through and watch it, I'm sure it all plays out. It doesn't mean that watching it you can understand and follow it. So I think it's a really well-made movie, and I think I've seen it twice. I think I've seen it 3 times now, and it's like every time I'm like just about kind of able to keep track, but I'm like, I think you went a bit too complex here, and I'm sure you've dotted I's and crossed the T's, but you need to respect the audience a little bit for maybe not being able to know exactly what you had in your head, or you not communicating that perfectly on screen. And there's issues with female characters, Kenneth Branagh just there.
But sometimes as well, acknowledging the limitations of a filmmaker can really make you appreciate when they, work in spite of that. So yes, Nolan can be unwieldy, and at his weakest can sometimes be cold. His movies can be a little cold and emotionless. Tenet's a little bit cold of a movie. Inception's a little bit cold. But then when films like Interstellar, the emotion of it comes through, and actually,
I'm so glad he swings big.
Yeah, and with Dunkirk as well. When I rewatched that recently, and I was actually really surprised at the bleakness of it and the despair of it. And I thought, despite in other instances where your approach can sort of chill things a little bit, when you are able to break through despite of that, it makes it almost even more powerful.
So we can see what they're doing, and that they're overcoming, I guess, maybe sometimes those holes and their shortcomings. I agree about Dunkirk instantly. That's my favorite of his. Yeah, and I agree. It's bleak, and for me that is an emotional movie. I remember
very much
at the time thinking it follows in the footsteps of those colder films. But for me, the fact that even though it kind of denies a central character, really, you have multiple ones. You just believe in that plight that they're in so well, because it's so well realized, and the stoic kind of, it does what for me the best war movies do, which is that it has a kind of stoic vulnerability to it. So these guys, they know they're probably going to die any minute, and when the bombs are falling, but like they keep going.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful.
Yes.
I think that movie, you see that in films like Saving Private Ryan, you see it in some of the best war films, Paths of Glory, and that movie really has that too. I think that's one of the reasons why it's my favorite.
Yeah, and like the proximity of death in Dunkirk is inescapable. It's like right there, and that's why we're at the end. Spoilers for Dunkirk, historical event. It's even though there's a very bittersweet thing with them arriving back in England, it's also warm and full of life, and there's the children running past the window, and there's the sort of like jubilation of life there, which is a really nice contrast. And it's emotionally, and they're playing Elgar, isn't it? Nimrod, isn't it? They're playing away, and Tom Hardy stood on the beach, and you go, bloody hell, this is good. Mess me up, Nolan.
I was having a conversation with someone about like just reflecting on Oppenheimer, and like I think people came out of that experience to be like, oh, it was so much, and then the bomb goes off, and then you've got this huge legal thing, and it sort of like ramps up after this big explosion. And I was having this conversation, I was like, in a lot of ways, the film actually starts after the bomb goes off. It's actually leading up to it. It's kind of this big distraction that gets in the way of what the film really wants to be about, which is an unpacking of Oppenheimer and everything to do with Strauss's character. And I think it can be a little bit overwhelming when like the half an hour before the bomb goes off, it's like build up, bang. And instead of taking a beat, the film's like, here's what we really want to communicate. And I think in a 3-hour film with 100 words on a page, it can kind of, 1,000 words on a page even, it can kind of throw you a little bit. But actually I'm like, that's kind of the beginning, is the bomb going off and it being handed over to the CIA, and then the unpacking of whether or not he's a traitor, whether or not these people meant what they said, whether or not the people around him really believe that he is who he says he is. It's kind of the start of the movie 90 minutes in, which I think is really tough. And like, I still love it, but I'm like, that's a big bite to take out of the film burger. Between the kitchen and Pulp Kitchen.
I think that's what people like about Nolan, is that he does ask something of his audience.
Yes.
People get on the level with him. I mean, we were talking actually on the pod recently about Nolan, with the Odyssey specifically, but with what you just said there about Oppenheimer, like it builds and builds and builds. I've been finding that with his films the last 10, 15 years, like he's really seems to be been building on this idea of just accelerating the movie and the pace of it and the editing. And when I was talking about it, I used the word monoform, which is a phrase which means like in film where like everything is cut increasingly fast, everything is underscored by music. I mean, it's quite a sort of, it's monoform for a reason, like a lot of films do this. But Nolan seems to be someone who is almost consciously pushing it faster and faster and faster. I thought the Odyssey was like another extension of that. Like, do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like the way he builds his films, the way he paces them?
Yeah. It's definitely like that non-linear trick where the stuff you've seen earlier all of a sudden starts to crystallize and come true. And there's revelations at the end of the Odyssey where like I think it clicked to me. I was like, oh, I get what you're trying to use war as a framing device, and like the sort of I don't want to spoil the Odyssey, but this idea of like, it's Zeus's law, you should be kind to a stranger in case they are gods in disguise. And that's said so many times throughout the film, but you really understand it at the end. And I think like it also feels like not just within his films, Nolan, it has been continually ramping up in the releases he's making. I really feel like he is trying to make a library of classics in real time. And it's an amazing run to watch because every film that comes out, again, not perfect, but they are so impactful and worthy of discussion. And he's making the films in the way he wants, with the biggest budget, with the biggest idea, with the biggest camera. And it's just really exciting to see this run. I genuinely think we all sit down and have this conversation in 20 years. We'll look back at this run and we'll talk about it in the same way we talk about Spielberg in the 90s into the noughties, Scorsese, and whatever era you want to pick of like one of the great cinema runs, crossing war movies, sci-fi, historical epics, biopics, the Odyssey. Like he's going for all of it, and I think that's just so exciting.
Yeah, and I think do you know the Kuleshov effect, which is the causality of images, that if you have one same image but you could change the secondary image into different things and it would change the meaning from cutting from one to the other, right? And it's like Nolan's like, you like the Kuleshov effect, I'll give you the Kuleshov effect. And it's like he's operating on a level that's like not just smashing frames together or scenes together, it's like whole chunks of movies for an audience's pleasure. And you're right, with every sort of successive film, it's if he said, okay, we're going to up the difficulty a little bit more, but you did Oppenheimer with me, audience, stick with me for this. And that is quite That's really quite thrilling, actually.
The opening line in The Prestige is like, pay attention, isn't it?
Are you watching closely?
Are you watching closely?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, listen, like you're going to need to pay attention here. 2/3 of Inception is Joseph Gordon-Levitt explaining the plot just to make sure that you're on board with what's happening.
That's some of my favorite exposition in one of his films. It's just the way that the first half of Inception just lays out the deck so beautifully and visually, and like, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's leading Elliot Page around, like, you can cheat architecture by doing impossible shapes and stuff, and then boom, you go into the
Good exposition is an art form, really, like once it's done well.
Also, The Prestige in many ways is the most meta Nolan film, and it describes all of his entire storytelling approach, because it's not just about showing you something, it's not just about taking something away, it's then about bringing it back. And like, obviously the Odyssey is like that, Interstellar's like that, and
the Odyssey is one of my favorite ways he's used non-linear, because there's not like a twist, or it's not like you didn't realize this thing about this person. Like I thought the Siege of Troy would be this like epic opening action scene, it would be this like big set piece, but actually he continually revisits the Siege of Troy, and every time he revisits it, it's given a new meaning. And as you get to the end of the film, you understand what it was that they did and the impact that had, and like returning home for Odysseus. And it is, as this allegory for the horrors of war, it was as much of a psychological way to return home as it was a physical one. And I think that's what grounds the Odyssey in something really modern and timeless, as an allegory for men who've returned home from war, or anyone who's returned home from war. Like, you're never really the same person, and something you've done and the people who have died around you change you forever. And I think revisiting in a non-linear way the Trojan War, I'm like, oh my God, you've added meaning throughout this 3-hour film, which crystallizes it for an audience. That's great.
You should get him on the pod.
Yeah,
he'd be a great guest.
Hot take. He's going to be big.
Just give him a ring.
Chrissy, come on. I totally agree about the Odyssey in terms of, one of the other things I admired about it was that, like, in his other movies with that non-linear structure, he does it quite explicitly. He makes a thing of it. Like, even in Oppenheimer, you have like fission and fusion, the two parallel strands of, like, the 50s stuff with Robert Downey Jr. and then you've got the build up to the bomb. But in the Odyssey, it just was implicit. Like, he just threaded it
much
through.
more seamless.
And I noticed it, but most time I didn't even have to think about it, because it felt so seamless. And that for me was like, we talk about the kind of leveling up of Nolan, the confidence. Now he can just do it.
Because like the Etiquette stuff is kind of taking place over like a few weeks and like building up to the finale. But like, I guess it's Telemachus asking people, somebody tell you want to hear about Odysseus, I'll tell you about Odysseus. And like other people really, like John Leguizamo being like, this, and it's a very seamless way to be like, there was this one time Odysseus did this one thing. It just works very seamlessly.
We were talking about Jon Bernthal in The Office actually earlier, because as I said, I just watched Brand New Day, Spider-Man, and I really enjoyed him actually in that. It was a fun show, doing what he does best, doing Jon Bernthal.
Just New Yorking his way through a movie.
There are some actors. We've said this is like some actors, like some actors lose themselves in other roles and disappear, but some actors, they have their certain style, but they bring the roles to them, and that's what I find with Jon Bernthal. That even though on the face of it, he looks like and sounds like he's sort of doing a very similar role each time, but obviously he's not. When actually you look at it, he's internalized all those layers, and I loved him as the Punisher in that movie.
He does a really good brand, and I think also like off camera in person of having like a really gruff but soft masculinity. It's like he's like one of the strongest people in the room, but he also like feels it the hardest, and I think he plays that really well. There's a scene towards the end of Brand New Day where like Bernthal's cooking really well, and he's great. Love to see him and stuff.
Scene with him in Holland, like no spoilers.
No spoilers.
Yes.
A really human interaction between two people. It's like Jon Bernthal's the guy you get.
Totally. It reminds me in some ways of like that kind of macho New Yorkiness reminds me a bit of like classic De Niro. And something that I would love to see Bernthal do next is do like a complete subversion of that, like De Niro did with like King Comedy. He goes Thursday King.
Yeah.
Where he plays just a total geek. Rupert Pupkin, this space outsider, fanboy geek loser essentially.
Give him the lead role.
I'd love to see Bernthal do something like that, where he completely subverts his kind of macho. Does something different. I mean, but as you say, like he internalizes those layers already. But I guess I would love to see him go in that direction as well. Yeah. And then touching, so that's what ifs, and then I guess one that's maybe maybe save the trickiest to last, hottest movie take. I mean, I guess we all have one, but like, do you guys have a hottest movie take that gets people pointing the like in Rapunzel, pointing the swords at the main guy?
I guess like it's not like a specific movie. I think more of late, I think Hollywood has become really risk averse to casting new talent. I'm getting quite sick of seeing the same 6 actors in all of the films, and it's not their fault. These actors are brilliant in everything I keep seeing them in, but as someone who watches most of the films, I just want to see fresh faces. So like, again, it's not their problem, but like Jacob Elordi, Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet, Paul Mescal for a bit, potentially Tom Holland, did I say Robert Pattinson? It's like, I'm going to see him as Batman. He's also in Dune. He's also in the drama. He was in the Odyssey, and he's great in everything that he does. But I just find it's actually getting a bit boring to see the same person and everything. And like Zendaya, she's on this amazing one. She's had 5 huge projects, from Euphoria, from Dune. She might be in Avengers, I don't know. But like, it's like 5 projects a year. And I just think we need to really like take a punt on some fresh actors. And you can criticize Marvel in all sorts of ways for sort of the last 10 years, but I think one of the biggest failures post Endgame is they failed to create a new generation of stars to lead their next Avengers film. And it's like, there's all sorts of problems to do with Doomsday, but when you look at them all lined up in that trailer, it's like, who do I like? Who do I know? Who's new here? And there's something to be said about big franchise films that already have like an audience and a backing to pluck people out and create stars. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, yeah, let's cast a guy who's Batman, who was in this, who was in that. Like Chalamet had an era where he was in Wonka, he was in Dune, he's in Marty Supreme, and you can argue there's lots of things about, the sort of how people got a bit sick of Marty, but you could argue maybe Timothée Chalamet had just done too many projects in the lead up to it, and also went for an Oscar. So I just think it'd be really nice to see some different faces, because it's the same people. It's like, there's nothing wrong with them. I just want to see a different person in the movies. That's my take at the moment.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's easy to forget that those guys, that was what happened to those guys. Like, the first time we saw Timothée Chalamet in something, or Tom Holland or Zendaya, it was exciting.
Yes, really exciting to see them
why they are where they are now, and they came from those roots. And you've got to keep on paying attention to those roots and see who's the next generation. 100%. How about you, George?
I think I share James's frustration. Actually, I don't have a burning hot take to share with you, other than I tell you what, it's not a hot take, it's a theory. It's like it's not something I think they should try in certain cinemas, or like a little pop-up could do. It's like you get silent discos, silent cinemas, in the sense that every audience member has to wear headphones and watches it that way, because if you're watching headphones, A, you're not going to be disturbed by anyone, but B, people aren't going to be talking to each other because they have to have the headphones on to listen anyway.
You want to talk to, it's like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, it's more of a, you're locked in. Yeah.
Get Bose or Sony or any high-end, Sennheiser to develop some great headphones, and they can watch it like that. And then, you're still with a communal experience, because you can still aware of people laughing or getting scared, but you're just prevented from pure disruption, because cinema etiquette is like at its worst.
And there's something to be said when I often watch films at home. Sometimes I end up watching with headphones, and I know like big screen experience is the best, but there's something to be said about certain films that are real like earwig films that get in your ears, and like having a big set of headphones to watch something I actually find from an audio standpoint more immersive. And I'd love to, just as a test, see if they could do that on the big screen. I also think we should be more strict about, like, when we go to some press screenings, it's like, put your phone in a plastic bag, put it in a wallet, seal it, don't get it out. It'd be nice for there to be like that system where you're just, it's kind of like where they ban social media for kids, even though you can't police it. It sets a precedent for a tone of like, this is the expectation that you shouldn't be on your phone while you're here. And sorry, just one more thing, the Etiquette story coming out of Spider-Man Brand New Day, which is the biggest film that's been out in years, and everyone is going to the cinema. I've seen so many TikToks on my feed of people complaining about how bad the etiquette is in cinemas, and people are filming the screen, people are talking, people are spoiling the film. And I just think if when those really big films do come and you get regular punters who don't regularly come to the cinema, and when they come, the cinemas aren't maintaining the sanctity of that experience, I just think it kills it for everyone, and they go, why should I bother? I'll just watch it at home. So it has to be enforced.
They should build cinemas like concrete bunkers, right? Because I went to see a film at the Barbican recently, and it was like, there's no signal in there. Good luck getting onto the Barbican Wi-Fi either. So you sat there and you're like, this is now just a device that just doesn't work. And so you won't have people on their TikTok scrolling through because they can't get any data. And I'm like, that's what we need. We need it to be a sort of a nuclear bunker that when you go in, you're deprived of any use of your phone. Okay? So make it happen.
So if the world ever ends, run to the Barbican.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And people would go, are you going to the Everyman or the Curzon? Where's the best place to hide?
You get in there and you go,
What seats do they have?
you get in and you go, oh, it doesn't work. Watch the film.
Yeah.
Exactly. Out of interest, do you guys have like a story of, memory of like your worst ever cinema etiquette experience? Like, when you went to see a film and the etiquette was just so fucking bad.
I got a story that has a positive ending because this is about James.
Yeah.
And it's like, because we can all sit here and we can be like, oh, you know, this person was really rude and horrible. But like a nice experience was that James and I went to see Avengers Endgame back in 2019. Obviously, seeing it on the big screen, fantastic experience. We're way up in the gods and we're watching it, it's great. But some bloke sat on his own in row, you know,
On the left, like right in front.
A.5.
On the end of
Right down there is on his phone, full brightness. So we can all see it. And you know, it's unavoidable when you're watching the screen.
And I'm sympathetic to almost like a quick text reply. Who knows, emergency, like I can have it. But like I saw he was tapping Instagram stories.
He was bored. Yeah, he didn't need to be there, basically. And James, quite rightly,
I really tried for like 5 to 10 minutes, just like ignore it. But I couldn't, like, it's in my
someone
vision.
was just shining a torch in your eye. That's what it's like in the corner of the room. So James walked all the way down to the bottom of the thing, and then you tapped him on the shoulder. What did you say?
I literally went to, like, I sort of surprised him because he was on his phone. I went, this is really annoying behavior. What are you doing? It's really distracting. Get off your phone. He's like, sorry, bro. It's like, it had to be done.
Yeah. And then James
Not ruining this movie.
came all the way back up the
up.
stairs. So then I was like, oh, thank you, actually. I was like, that's bad etiquette, but well handled from James there.
I have a sort of like, if someone's behind me where I can turn around, I have kind of like a 3-strike rule.
Yeah.
So like strike 1 is I'll look, see what the fuss is, fine. Strike 2, prolonged look. I'll usually wait to be acknowledged. I'm still not saying anything. I'll wait to be acknowledged, and then strike 3 is I'll be like, guys, what's going on?
Yeah.
Be quiet. It happened in my. I got to see the Odyssey really early, and it was a early press presenter critic screening. It was at the BFI IMAX, but it was like maybe less than 30 people in the room. And yeah, like the pool of people that were there were generally people who've been given very special access to see the film early to help promote it and cover it. And I'm like kind of near the back with another friend of ours who covers film. And these 2 guys behind us, 2 hours into the movie, like I can understand like it takes 5 minutes sometimes for people to settle, but 2 hours into the movie, just start a conversation. Just start a conversation as loud as I'm talking to you now. I'm just like, what are you doing? And I had to turn around and be like, be quiet. Like, it's so strange. And it wasn't like really about the film. They just started talking and it wasn't like a quick comment. It was like 30 seconds in. I was like, what on earth are you deciding to have a conversation about in this screening? Baffling.
Well, it's like, how's the wife? Oh, she's all right. Yeah.
And like almost again, like big opening weekend, you know, you're there with the regular punters, everyone else is there. I understand, but like this is an invite screening, like 2.5 weeks ahead of the Odyssey coming out. Like, be quiet.
Hey, Billy, what about the night vision goggles?
Oh god.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I used to work in a cinema. I mean, that is cinema etiquette.
Splinter Cell. Just,
Well, oh my god! Thanks for reminding me of that, Will. I had that image in my mind. No, it was. I used to work at Cineworld for a couple of years when I first moved to London, and I don't know if you guys know this about Cineworld specifically, but they have when you work there, they make one of your jobs is you go into the screens and you check the audience with night vision goggles to see if anyone's pirating. You know, not that people really do that these days, but people are pirating the film. And you know, and there's someone who goes and does that, you know, every day. There's a dedicated like Splinter Cell agent who goes and does that. And I remember, and in the Cineworld that I worked at, which was down sort of like near Canary Wharf, it was a bit, you know, down and dirty, and you would get some pretty untoward behaviour going.
Oh no!
I remember checking one of the screens. And it was that Russell Crowe film, The Pope's Exorcist.
Of course.
But like the wrong film for this kind of behaviour. I remember looking up at the back row. It's always the back row for his night vision goggles, and there was a bloke, and he just looked like a normal bloke at first watching the film. But then I realised he had a coat over his lap.
Oh no!
And was just bobbing up and down. And it was exactly what
No way.
And then, so to cap it off, so I'm like, is that definitely what I think it is that I'm seeing? He sort of turns to his right and sees me looking at him through the goggles. He makes direct eye contact, and it's the spooky Silence of the Lambs, like the sheep eyes. Buffalo Bill, he's looking at you with those eyes like that, and whilst he's getting sucked off, it's like that. I'm like, I can't do this.
I'm not paying enough for this.
Wow.
Oh man!
So,
Was it a busy screening?
Busy screening of The Pope's Exorcist starring Russell Crowe.
Next to him.
Yeah, no, I think there was a bit. He was in the back row. There were a couple of people to his right. He was not alone in that row. There were other people in that row.
But I can tell you now that man is the only person to have enjoyed the Pope's Exodus.
Yeah.
Okay, for that reason, okay.
He left like, that was brilliant.
Everyone
Love
else,
that.
yeah, no one else rates it that highly.
He doesn't know he's seen the Pope's
No.
God, yeah, it was that. Yeah, I actually didn't quit on that day, but I bloody should have.
Yeah.
Because you see some shit in that job. But it's funny because when we were talking earlier about like communal experiences in cinemas and how sort of great that can be and how it can lift a film up. Do you guys know Train to Busan? There's the Korean zombie
I've not
film.
seen it, but I know it. Yeah.
Oh, I recommend. It's one of my favorite zombie films. It's fantastic. And I don't know if you guys ever had an experience where like you're in this film and like everyone, it's like a tearjerker and everyone starts crying.
Yeah.
And like the emotion in the room is so high that like everyone kind of bowls you over. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What kind of films have you had that with?
Everyone's cried. I definitely have some that's come to mind. Recently, I talked about like everyone was teary in a film. Usually remember.
I'm just trying to think. For me, like I don't know about like a whole massive screen
one recently.
being floods with tears, but I can hear like sniffling and weeping. It was Sheep Detectives, was it?
Sheep Detectives.
Yeah, I've
Loving.
not seen it.
Yeah,
So don't spoil. But yeah,
I've lost 5 minutes. Just watched that through the tears in my eyes. Yeah.
but
I made me bawl. Oh, it's heartbreaking.
I think in
Sheep Detectives.
Yeah, genuinely. Yeah.
I think in when I saw Wuthering Heights, I heard people. I mean, I was a
Yes,
reader, but I heard
agree.
people sniffling around me, and The Farewell as well was a movie that I heard like people sort of sobbing and just like I like to hear a good because people are locked in and it's really moving them.
I find that in oh, good. I was going to say, because I think in Britain we're quite, typically the British are quite reserved.
Yeah.
You don't clap until the end of the play. In cinemas maybe we're a bit more reserved now, showing our emotions. But with Train to Busan, which I recommend everyone to check out if you can, it's a fantastic zombie film. It's a really emotional film. And I won't spoil anything about it, but there's the climax of the film emotionally is just like it's just a showstopper. And I've screened it for for my film society at uni, which I ran, which the podcast kind of came out of. And there was like 80 people in there, students in that cinema, like watching it, like the biggest screening we ever had. And half of them are bawling their eyes out. And I had never experienced that before, where like so many people are crying at once. Yeah. And I start tearing up. So I'm like, you kind of just get swept up.
Communal blubber.
Yeah. I actually, this was kind of at the end of the movie, but then immediately afterwards, I went to a screening. Did you see I Swear, the Robert Aramayo movie?
I remember it.
So I went to a screening that was in association with Tourette's Action. And most of the people in the audience had Tourette's or worked in the sort of either worked for Tourette's Action or donated to Tourette's Action. So this was a movie about someone with Tourette's. So it's for this audience and everything. So the movie's quite moving anyway. And then the movie finishes, and you're aware of the kind of the buzz of emotion that's there. I mean, me and my wife were like quite moved. But then the lights come up, and everyone is like in floods of tears. But they're in floods of tears, and they're talking about it, and people are literally saying like, this means so much. This is going to save lives. This is exactly what we've needed for so long, and it's so great. And you just, as we're filing out of this Curzon Mayfair, I think it was, you're just surrounded by what this actually means to these people, and it's sinking in. And then suddenly, my wife and I were just like, and it was just like it wasn't in the movie, but it was immediately afterwards. And I'm like, and it was brilliant because it's like that's what that movie is for. It's just, it was a nice experience.
I've got you making me want to see that movie so bad.
Oh, it's good.
So it's
I've heard such good things about it.
I believe it's on Netflix now.
I've got no excuse.
Not sponsored.
I was just remembering my screening of Hamnet, which was full, was very blubbery towards the end.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a classic. That's a modern.
Lots of
Yeah.
people.
Tearjerker.
Lots like the credits, and it was on the nature of daylight, sort of at its peak. Lots of
Yes.
people. What are we doing next?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a fine note to wrap up this chat on, guys. But this has been such a pleasure. I actually just realised, though, very quickly as a last sort of wrap-up question, when we were talking about Nolan and the Odyssey, you said, when it comes to his female characters, sometimes he struggles with them. And I meant to ask, like, who do you think is the best Nolan female character?
Character.
You think is the best one?
Okay, it's a tough one there. Is it Jessica Chastain in Interstellar? Like, it's not perfect, but like, could be Murph. I think the Murph as the girl does really well. Nothing against Jessica Chastain, but I mean like the scenes when he says goodbye and it's kind of a goodbye forever. Yeah. And then actually again, when he comes back and she's old, how did you know that I was going to come back? Because my daddy told me. Dum-dum-dum. Like those, I think, are the best scenes with women in them in a Nolan movie.
I guess maybe Samantha Morton now.
Yes.
In the Odyssey.
Really good, and that's like about it's a gendered scene,
Yes,
isn't it? Like
yes.
it has its gender as part of like what makes that scene powerful, and she's brilliant in it.
Cersei, yeah, that's probably a great actress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Samantha Morton and Murph.
Either
both just-
Mackenzie Foy.
Yes, it's Ellen Burstyn.
I'll just give it to
All the
Murph.
Murphs.
Oh, Murphl's around because there's an amazing moment when she does the voice note and she's like, "You knew, didn't you?"
Oh, yeah.
And like that, all the emotional gut punches of that character, I think, are done really well in Interstellar. So I'll give it to that. Yeah.
Nice. I think for me, I think Emily Blunt in Oppenheimer might be a contender. I think she's just great. I mean, even though she's playing his wife, I think like you feel so much of what she's going through as well as Oppie in that film.
There's great moments where she's being grilled by Jason Isaacs and she like claps back in a way that you wouldn't expect someone of like her profession to do, and it's like a really great moment where she absolutely kills it. Yeah.
And the look on her face when they're older and Benny Safdie goes for the handshake when
Yes.
Oppenheimer's at the Oval Office.
doesn't forget.
Yeah, it's obviously
forget
more well played than that by Emily Blunt, but you're like, that's pretty good.
Then West Prada Sass.
Yeah. Walked off set. That's a good, good shout. Yeah.
The holy trinity of Nolan female characters.
Yeah. Slim pickings. Yeah.
Sadly.
Great stuff. Well, hey guys, this was such a blast.
Thank you.
As a fan of yours, this was a real pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.